Good evening, Huddle. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm glad to see everybody. Give yourselves a round of applause for being here. Excellent. So tonight, to open us up, we are going to have our senior advisor, Patrice Perry, open us up with our opening prayer and scripture. Let's give her a hand.
Good evening, Huddle family, and happy 10th anniversary. Yes, shout out to the Huddle. We love y'all. Our scripture tonight is Joshua, the first chapter, verses 7 through 9. Be strong and very courageous. Be careful to obey all of the instructions Moses gave you. Do not deviate from them, turning either to the right or to the left. Then you will be successful in everything that you do. Study this book of instruction continually. Meditate on it day and night, so you will be sure to obey everything that's written in it. Only then will you prosper and succeed in all that you do. This is my command. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Our hearts and minds are clear and quiet. Let us pray. Most gracious and wise God, we come on this 10th anniversary of the Nan Youth Huddle. God, we thank you because we've seen in the last 10 years that you've healed, you've restored, you've delivered, you've set free. And God, we thank you for this group. Some days people came in here, God, with stuff on their shoulders. But when they walked back out of Huddle, they felt like you were still the light of the world. God, we thank you tonight. We thank you for each and every young person that's passed through the Huddle doors and those that will continue to pass through in the next 10 years. God, continue to give us traveling mercy. Continue to be with each and every leader, each and every person that serves a plate, each and every person that gives a smile. God, thank you for our founder and president, Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton. Thank you, God, for giving the vision to Ashley Sharpton and Dominique Sharpton. God is not likely to be here every week committed to the cause. But God, we ask you to continue to give them strength. We know that you are God, and beside you there is none other. So God, we thank you tonight. We thank you for this National Action Network. We thank you for this Nan Youth Huddle. Continue to walk with us. Continue to talk with our young people. Continue to cover them. God, we ask this in nothing but your matchless name. Continue to keep our college students, God, lifted up this week as they go through tests and trials. Give them the strength that they need. God, we ask this in nothing but your matchless name. And all of your children said, amen.
Thank you, Patrice. Wasn't that a good prayer? Yes, I feel uplifted. And, I forgot to say thank you, Patrice, for reminding me. But let's really give a round of applause for 10 years of a wonderful Huddle. Yeah. Thank you, and we really do have to appreciate Ashley and Dominique and all of those that helped to found the Huddle, because it does take a lot to stay committed to something that you begin. Am I right? All right, so now we are going to have our chair and director report by none other than the director and founder, Miss Ashley Sharpton.
Thank you, Christian. Happy Huddle Monday, everybody. All right, as we already said, today marks 10 years ago. We were in this room on December 11th, 2013. It was a different style. It was on a different day. We started on Wednesdays. I won't go into it because we formally are celebrating in January. This year we celebrated in March, so that jumps around. Usually it's all decorated and we have special guests and all that, so I won't ruin all that. But thank you to everybody who's ever contributed, anybody who's ever put forth effort. If you just came here and sat here for one Monday, 5 minutes, you've been here all every step of the way for the whole decade. Thank you so much. Thank you to the leadership of National Action Network. Thank you to the board for allowing us. We were literally an initiative, an idea, and because Rev and Attorney Hardy and certain people believed in us, they allowed us to flourish and to expand and to go beyond New York City. So thank you to the leadership of National Network for giving my dream a chance to become an impact all over the nation. So yeah. We'll start with pursuing peace in the Middle East. I'm going to do the announcements and action alerts. There's a few announcements as well, so try to stay with me. If you have questions, you can come after and just talk to me on the side, or you can talk to Trees or Damo. And there's always information in the front. Also, there's always great announcements on that back desk that Dan helped to decorate, but make sure you check that out before you leave as well. All right. This past Monday, Reverend Sharpton, Martin Luther King III, and Andrea Waters King participated in a Zoom call with Rachel and John Goldberg Poland. These are the parents of a hostage who is still held in Gaza. Their 23-year-old son, Hirsch, was taken hostage by Hamas on October 7th, and they are desperately awaiting his release. In the course of the conversation, Reverend Sharpton and the Kings learned that among the hostages of the Hamas attack were 3 Africans. There were students Joshua Malel and Clements Matinga from Tanzania, as well as an individual of South African nationality. Reverend Sharpton vowed to continue advocating for the release of all hostages and the protection of civilians. He has since asked to meet with the Qatari ambassador to the UN for peace talks on getting more hostages released. This follows other measures NAN has taken, including the 21-day prayer for peace in the region. They are also discussing if they would have to go over there. There's a lot going on, but Reverend Sharpton and the Kings, Martin Luther King III and Andrea Waters King, are on it. I don't know if everyone listens to the radio show Keeping It Real, but a lot of people called in because they didn't know that there were Africans there as well. That shouldn't impact us differently because we should care about everybody's lives. But for some, a lot of people called in and was like, oh, that changes my opinion and all that. So I just thought that was interesting in listening to the radio show. We're praying for all hostages and everyone that's been impacted, period, since October 7th on both sides. Again, we're with a two-state resolution for the conflict. I know it's not as easy as black and white. That's a whole lot of politics as well. Some people don't think that's even an option, but that's where we stand as a National Action Network organization. All right, New York State wealth gap. Anybody know anything that's going on about that? Okay, Christian, that's good. This week, Reverend Sharpton and Nan called out New York State's deep racial wealth gap. A new report from the New York City Comptroller's Office details how white households in New York State have a median net worth nearly 15 times more than black households. We talked about this last week. The median income for a white family is $276,900, while the median income for a black family is only $18,870. That's asinine. That disparity is astounding and unacceptable. The report's findings shows that New York State has a wider racial wealth gap than in the United States as a whole. Discrepancies in wealth also persist across educational levels, where white New Yorkers with only a high school degree have a net worth over 3 times greater than black New Yorkers with a bachelor's degree. Did y'all hear what I said? Okay. Generational poverty, income inequality, institutional racism, and unequal access to opportunities all contribute to this tremendous gap. As we head into an election year, Nan and Reverend Sharpton will ensure that economic equity will be a major focus, along with other pertinent issues like voting rights, police reform, and more. I won't go into that because there's a did you know about that, but those numbers should scare you, because that basically means those who are getting higher education are still not getting paid for it. That's a waste of your time. That's a waste of that's a waste of so much. But I won't even go there because that's like my blood is boiling. Christmas at Nan. Let's off the topic. Continuing with our annual Christmas Day tradition, National Action Network will open its doors at the House of Justice in Harlem for all who needs sustenance, warmth, and a place to gather and celebrate the joyous occasion. Who has already signed up to be here for Christmas Day? Okay, good. That's like 80% of the room. Good job. The rest of you, it's okay. You can be your families. It's okay. Beginning at 11 a.m., NAN's headquarters will welcome seniors, those in foster care, the hungry, the unhoused, and anyone in need of a hot meal, toys for children, and a sense of strong community. Each year, elected officials, dignitaries, celebrities, volunteers join Rev and NAN staff to serve food, distribute toys, and interact with everyone. There will be toys for all ages, but of course, like we said last week, you have to have your children with you or the child with you for that. We are not going to take it and say, oh, I have 4 kids at home, I need gifts for all 4. That's not fair to those who have children here. And we also ask you, and Katrina and Patrice, I'm sure going to let you know for the volunteers, but if you have eaten and you don't, we want you to shift. We want you to move around so that those who are coming in have space to come in. A lot of times for Thanksgiving, people were standing around. It wasn't really fair. People had to stand up and eat, and they already have issues with housing, so they come here for that. And those of us who are members, we're chilling and I don't want to say in the way, but try to shift over and make space for those who are in need for the holiday season, okay? All right. King Day with Nan. Who knows when King Day is? It's the same time every year. Not Patrice. Tony Beer. All right, everybody's hand should have been up. Come on now. Reverend Sharpton and Nan have been hard at work organizing for their annual King Day activities. On January 15th, Nan will kick things off with the King Day breakfast in Washington, D.C. at the Mayflower Hotel at 8 a.m. This past January, President Biden addressed the breakfast, and each year Nan welcomes Martin Luther King III, Andreas Waters King, and a host of elected officials under the leadership of Ebony Riley, our D.C. Borough Chief. Following the breakfast, Reverend Sharpton will be back in New York here at Nan's House of Justice headquarters for the King Day event. Who knows what time that starts? All right, Christian, 1:30 p.m. I suggest you get here like 12:30 because it's usually packed. This gathering features notable figures, political leaders, community advocates, and more. And in the evening, Reverend Sharpton, this is a new leg to our King Day efforts, will be at Nan for the Third Day King event in Jersey. So usually, I was telling Christian earlier, usually we go and pray at the only Martin Luther King statue in Harlem as Huddle. We don't formally have Huddle here, but we're not going to do that because we're going to try to get there to support the New Jersey efforts and Pastor Steffi Bartley and his leadership in Jersey. So that is beginning at 5:30 p.m. in Nan, New Jersey, and they will welcome a slew of speakers and activities to commemorate the nation's greatest civil rights leader we've seen. Information about King Day is available at the Nan website, which is what? Oh, okay, we're not away, okay. All right, and basically, that's all. Oh, also, Nan Cares, for those, there's still time if you want to donate for the holiday efforts. That's nancares.net if you wanted to contribute, or for toys, or for the food as well. So for the court date for Jordan Neely, I think I talked about this 2 weeks ago. We actually got the date. The date is January 17th. So we're going to be organizing to pack the court to stand with Jordan Neely's father and to stand with the lawyers for that day. So that's January 17th, but I will continue to remind you, we're not going to put out a graphic because we don't want it, some agents getting there and mess things up. All right? Gwen Carr's court date, I don't see, Gina was here. She's in the back. She accompanied her last week. The next court date for Gwen Carr is March 10th, and it's open to the public, so we want to stand with her as well. All right, Gwen Carr is Eric Garner's mother, for those who are not aware. All right, and Jordan Neely was the young man who was killed on the train in his Michael Jackson outfit. Well, he was a Michael Jackson performer, excuse me. But yeah, he was choked on the train by Daniel Penny, and they're still in court for that. For those in Jersey, there is a holiday dinner, toy and coat drive, and giveaway on December 23rd at Newark Tech World. So if you are in Jersey, if you're watching from Jersey, there is a holiday dinner, toy and coat drive, and giveaway, Newark Tech World, 11:30 to 4 p.m. And yeah, that's the end of mine. That date is a Tuesday. All right? But we have all those, like I said, all of the graphics are in the front. And of course, if you follow us on social media, everything is on that. And you can always go to nationalactionnetwork.net. Again, thank you everyone for your support of Huddle for the last decade. From the staff to the volunteers to our young leaders. From our first one was Victoria Purnell to Malaysia Freeman, Dominique Johnson. Then we skipped to the boy, Christopher Lane. Christopher was never president, but he definitely was a youth leader here. Keith, can't forget Keith. A lot of y'all don't know Teresa Freeman. She was a district leader in Harlem. Without Teresa Freeman's help, we would not have advanced at all. She taught us basically how to organize. She did our first march, I remember, downtown in Times Square. She helped to fund it and helped give us, literally sit and talk with us with Columbia students. So many people have poured into Huddle that have gone. Mother Kennedy literally was at the first Huddle we ever had 10 years ago. And she recently passed this year. So many people have come and gone. I don't know if y'all remember Quavon Caruth. He was a young man who interned with Dominique. He passed as well. But so many people have come and gone in Huddle, but then there's so many young leaders. Malaysia Freeman, who started with us, is now at Clark Atlanta University. She's about to graduate. Before Falivi and before Usman. And then, I know that's you guys' era, but there's been so many stages of Huddle. And to see who was besides Treese, who was here at the first one? Lisa Hobbs was at the first, Lorianne was at the first one. Arnold Penix, okay, so I didn't want to do this, but I think I have to. Let me finish the youth, the young people. Mr. Gilchrist, he taped the first one. It's crazy. So much. It's so much happened between there. I remember we used to have Chrissy Lampkin. She came to the first one. And then the second one, it was Puma. We used to have celebrities come out so as basically like an incentive. We would take them to the Apollo. But then slowly but surely, we started meeting. The topics were good enough. People started coming and looking forward to it. Young people come by was like Gino's age, that are now grown, still come on by and they tell us how they're doing. Then Felivi, during pandemic, Huddle shifted, just like everything else. Felivi stepped up and literally was a beacon of light for Huddle, thanks to William Allen and thanks to Derek Perkison. And then he brought his whole squad, and they came and they took over as the young men. And it was like a whole, where are the girls? And it was like, their response was always, where were the boys when the girls were here? So it was like, okay, anyway. But they grew up, and now they're in college, and now they're leading and have become national youth directors and field directors. Let's clap them up. But they're doing their thing, and now it's Gino's era and Giselle's era. They came in and took it by storm. Thanks to Gina Williams in the back on the phone. But thanks to Gina and parents like that. And also thanks to Miss Pam. She bought Pinnacle. I don't know if y'all remember Pinnacle and Aaliyah. The parents responsible for making sure their young people came here every Monday. And those young people who felt it not robbery without their parents, like Christian, who came and volunteered their time because they felt it not robbery to basically come here and to pour their efforts and pour their brilliance into Huddle. So we thank you for your leadership, because basically y'all are the young people that we will open the doors for to come in here and pour into. And then of course, the adults, the not so young at heart. Not our seniors, but not so young at heart. I'm not young anymore legally. I'm now 36. But I started when I was 24. And then Dominique, my sister Dominique, she was a young adult when we started. Patrice Perry was here. She was at the first Huddle that we started. She grew from just one of the people come in, basically help win the leadership, and now she grew into basically the chief advisor. And she was our host. She jumped around. She's done so much at Huddle, and we couldn't do it without you. Mr. Mo Bars, he was at the first Huddle. I can say your name, Mr. Maurice. He was at the first Huddle. He was our creative contributor. He has done so much as well, and helped to bring us forth from our ciphers. We had Huddle ciphers. Sometimes Mo didn't even understand like the activism and why it mattered, but he still showed up and he made sure that people were here and people were engaged and people understood. Sometimes I am not the easiest to work with, but he always made sure in the back. He always made sure that it was like, no, understand what you're saying. Understand this is another way, this is another approach. Trey is not here anymore, but Trey was also very, very helpful as an advisor. He was very, very good at translating and helping with, especially when the young men came, he was very, very good at helping to lead them and to step in. Derek was also very good at helping. It was so many people that came in and gave us their time, their free time, but also their brilliance. And help with their strategy and help with just basically talking to our young people and making sure that they felt comfortable enough to come back and understand what they were doing and helping them own their voice. I don't think people understand the perks are not the food, it's this mic. And you have to know how to use this mic. A lot of people just to get their chance to speak and say what they have to say because their whole lives nobody gave them a chance, like church. But there's some people here that value and understand the point of Huddle. And people like Mo, people like Treese, people like Dominique, people like even Tony Veer, who's not even on the advisory, but make sure it's like you understand the point. People like Sister Word, get up here and make sure you understand the point, understand exactly what they're supposed to be doing and how they're supposed to work. So I thank you all, because without you all, we would not have stood up here for 10 years. We would not have lasted for 10 years. So thank you all very much for your time. Speaking of the food, my mother, Kathy Jo in Sharpton, before Nan even believed in this, because a lot of people didn't even think this was going to last 2 weeks, she put up her money and she would get the food and she would make sure she would go. She had 5 back surgeries over this decade, and she made sure the food was still here. Jacob's Restaurant. Sorry. That's why I didn't want to do this. That's why I didn't want to do this, sorry. At the end of the day, everybody sacrificed. But she made sure the food was still here. Jacob's Restaurant donated before we could pay for it, and made sure the kids could eat if they needed to, and the elders could eat. Mr. Arthur, for those who don't, Mr. Arthur, where you at? Oh, he's probably outside. Mr. Arthur and David, they made sure this place was not just open, but make sure everybody was here every time it was time for people to go. They were here to make sure it was closed. Treese used to be up here as well when she was at the House of Justice, Mo as well, to make sure those who needs accessorized gets home safely. This block is not always the safest. They made sure the young people got home safely, made sure they got, whether it was the Uber, the bus, whatever, they made sure the block was clean before they left. So I want to thank y'all for that, for making sure that it was whatever was going on here, it was done. Sometimes we were here, Thursday, Fridays, we would just call random events. Remember, we would just do stuff. And they made sure we were here. We had parks, it was okay. So I thank y'all, because without y'all, how could we be in here? How would we open? So thank you. Winston Gilchrist. Winston Gilchrist was our first videographer. He was our first person going live. We had a whole different system over here. You have literally known me since I was a little girl. You've seen it shift from Kirsten to everyone. And you've still been here every week. You also had health scares. And you made it your business. You would bother whoever you would have to bother to make sure that we knew that you were on deck if we needed you. And that is not going unnoticed at the end of the day. Thank you for all you do and for all your efforts. Sincerely, thank you. JT, of course, you're new, you're part of a new regime, but you also went beyond what you needed to do for us. You make sure that we're on deck. You make sure the young people, when they don't understand what I'm saying, understand it better, and to make sure that they are okay and everything is all right. So I just want to thank you for your input, and thank you for making sure that our our vibe online is right, even when we don't understand what is going on over there. Thank you very much. Dominique, my sister, and Marcus Bright. Marcus Bright named Huddle. For those who know who Dr. Marcus Bright is, that's Marcus Al's father. He gave the name Nan Youth Huddle, so I just want to salute you, brother, because without that, it would not be the Nan Youth Huddle. And of course, just every single person that is here today, as you carry it forward, Christian, Giselle, thank you, Dan, you and everyone in here has an interesting relationship, but you have committed your time and your input and your creativity to this huddle. Just like Arnold Penix set the standard, but you came and took it and you made it young, you made it hip, you made it yours. And regardless of what you're thrown, you bring your passion and you bring your creativity every week, and your honesty and your you. So thank you for your commitment and your dedication to us as well. Thank you to those who watch every week. We have people online. Shout out to the Las Vegas Huddle chapter, to the LA Huddle chapter, and there's the Detroit Huddle chapter. And now there's the New Jersey Huddle chapter starting in Newark. They're supposed to start in January. We'll shout them out when they start. But thank you to those who have been a part of it. Again, Lorianne, you was at the first one. Goldie, we couldn't do it without y'all. Katrina's not here, but Katrina literally prints everything out. I'll send her 15 articles, and she'll print out every article and everything needed by the time it's needed. So thank you to everybody who helps the wheels go here at National Network. Okay, I'm out the way. Bye-bye.
Yes, thank you. Yes, stand. Let's stand and really give Ashley a wonderful round of applause. She may not be our biological mother, but to be a mother that has birthed something, that's why she's not sad, but she's joyous. And she's grateful that even when people said it wouldn't last for 10 minutes, 10 weeks, let alone 10 months, we are now here for 10 years. Give that one more hand. That's good. All right. Now that that's out of the way, we still have a program. So we're going to try to expedite this. Mo is coming with our Black History Fact of the Day. Come on, Mo.
Okay, so the Black History Fact of the Day is December 6, 1849, Harriet Tubman escaped from slavery. On December 6, 1849, Harriet Tubman escaped from slavery. Within a decade, she became the most well-known conductor of the infamous Underground Railroad. Aside from emerging as one of the most effective abolitionists of her day, Tubman was instrumental in the Civil War as a secret spy and military leader. As a result, Tubman continues to inspire civil rights activists today. Tubman was one of the 9 children born to enslaved parents in Maryland. Originally named Araminta Harriet Ross, her parents, who were slaves, for two different owners called her by the nickname Minty. She endured daily degradations and violence as an enslaved person. Her three sisters were sold to a far-away plantation, but Tubman's mother successfully resisted the sale of her youngest son. Like most other slaves, Tubman suffered from brutal beatings and physical attacks that caused her permanent damage. She had scars on her back from lashings, and when at times she tried to protect a fellow slave at age 13, the overseer threw a 2-pound weight at her that struck her in the head. As a result, she suffered from seizures, severe headaches, and narcolepsy for the rest of her life. In 1844, she married a free black man, John Tubman. In 1849, Tubman decided to run away when she feared that she and the rest of the enslaved people on the plantation were about to be sold. With the help of a kind white woman, she followed the North Star to Philadelphia, walking 90 miles by foot. After working for a year and saving money, she returned to Maryland to free her sister and her sister's 2 children to freedom. Then a year later, she returned a second time to rescue her brother and 2 other men. When she returned for the third time, she intended to find her husband, but he had married someone new. Upon discovering this news, she simply found other slaves that she could escort up north to freedom. In total, Tubman made 19 trips into the South and freed over 300 slaves, including her 70-year-old parents. All the while, she never lost one passenger on the treacherous trips. By 1856, slave catchers put a $40,000 bounty, the equivalent of about $1 million today, on her. Yet she remained steadfast in her plan to liberate as many enslaved people as possible. Considered the Moses of her people, she explained, "I had reasoned this out in my mind. There was one of 2 things I had a right to do, liberty or death. If I could not have one, I would have the other." Aside from freeing hundreds of enslaved people, Tubman played a revolutionary and crucial role during the Civil War as a spy and general. She would disguise herself as an old woman and wander around Confederate territory and speak to the enslaved population in order to get top-secret military plans for the Union Army. She was also the first woman in U.S. history to plan and lead a military expedition. On the night of June 1st, 1863, Tubman, alongside Colonel James Montgomery, guided 150 soldiers from the 2nd South Carolina Army, an all-black Union Army regiment, and while troops from Rhode Island on gunboats to carry out a liberation raid on the rice plantations along the Combahee River. As they set fire to the plantations and destroyed bridges, they liberated slaves that had been too frightened to run away to the Union Army lines on their own. They liberated 750 slaves in total. Tubman also served as a nurse for the Union Army during the Civil War, often using herbal remedies. After the Civil War, Tubman lived the rest of her life in Auburn, New York. She helped raise money to help the newly freed slaves, fought for women's suffrage with Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, married a man 20 years her junior, adopted a daughter, and in 1896 opened up the Harriet Tubman Home for the Aged. Despite her difficult life and many health ailments, Tubman lived until she was 93. Even though she died in 1913, the talk of her replacing Andrew Jackson on a $20 bill is a current reminder of the civil rights pioneer's enduring legacy. So that is the Black History Fact today about Miss Cougar, Harriet Tubman, escaped from slavery. Thank you.
Mo always has to add something a little extra. Well, thank you, Mo, for that wonderful Black History Fact of the day. That was good teaching about Harriet Tubman. Did you know some of that stuff? I'm glad that you know it now. All right. Now we are going to have our Nan Artivism moment, which is going to be by Dan. Let's give it up for Dan.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to sing a little bit. Bear with me. I know we had a beautiful prayer earlier, all hearts and minds clear, so that's awesome. Pardon me, I just want to put my book back down. Most circumstances, I know my fate, but in reality, sometimes we get scathed. Gathering people's interest In just causes alike, the hill we climb seems so, so high. Fearlessly advancing, more dense and more high. Each step my feet tremble, yet each is the hike. Landing on footpaths solid from each treaded mount high. Scaling each level with strength and might. Gathering to share griot about our lineage, our plight. There will be a wealth of memories. I am not scared to perform and tear down the stage. And I know the sacrifices made. I'm not scared to tower in victory against unjust racism, because I know the impact that can make. I'm not scared to speak truth to power, just that it might liberate a people, to uplift them in spite of cruel oppression that each day we fight. Oh, I'm not scared to say no justice, no peace, no justice, no peace.
Thank you, Dan. That was very good. Give Dan one more round of applause. It sounded like he created Nan's own national anthem or something. But all right, now I want to know, is everybody an updated member for the year of 2023? Okay, I didn't see enough hands. I said, is everybody an updated member of NAN for 2023? This don't apply to all of you, but if you are not, make sure that you get updated today. And make sure, Oh, we have a brand new member. Where is he? Ray, stand up. Let's welcome our new member. Thank you so much.
Hey, yo, Sax, what up, boy? You already, boy?
All right.
What you talking about?
And what's your name? What's his name? I'm sorry? Papa Mystery. Let's welcome Papa Mystery. All right. Oh, and we also see a member here. I want to just acknowledge him. Is that Terrence Floyd sitting back there? Let's give Terrence a hand. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Now we are going to open it up to good news. I'm going to start the good news train and then y'all follow. Ashley told me, does anybody know who Coco Gauff is? I don't see. The tennis player. All right, so let me tell y'all who Coco Gauff is if you don't know. Coco Gauff, does anybody know how old she is? She just recently turned 19 years old. And she is now the highest earning female athlete in the year of 2023. Let's give her a hand. She has been estimated to make over $23 million in prize money and endorsements this year alone. She began competing at a professional level at the tender age of 15. She has already signed deals with companies such as New Balance, and this year her deals include Ballsy, I think I'm saying that right, UPS, Rolex, according to some sources, and is going to be featured in a Marvel movie. So let's give her a hand for her tremendous work. She is a 19-year-old and she is a young black woman. So that is something to be good for, that is following in the steps of many great female tennis athlete women. All right? All right. Anybody else with good news?
We usually don't do this, but this is an exception because I'm the co-chair, first of all. And second of all, because my announcement is relative to good news. So, National Action Network and Reverend Sharpton is going to be hosting, in addition to our Christmas Day event that we're doing here 11 to 3 on Christmas Day, Monday, December 25th, we will also be hosting a free screening of The Color Purple. So The Color Purple movie is coming out on Christmas Day. Many of us, I served on the leadership council for the film with Warner Brothers. It's been a crazy experience thus far. It stars, so this is the re-adaptation of the classic film Color Purple. Those of you who are theater goers and love musicals, this will also, it's the re-adaptation which includes music from the original musical that was on Broadway 2 times. It was on Broadway originally and then it came back to Broadway as a revival. And so Fantasia Barrino, who played Celie in the Broadway version of The Color Purple, is playing Celie. Taraji P. Henson stars. She's amazing. She plays Suge Avery. Danielle Brooks from Orange is the New Black, who also played Sophia in the role of the musical, on the Broadway musical. She's playing Sophia. Cole Domingo's playing Mr. There's so many, an amazing cast. Her is in the movie, the musical artist Her. Ciara's in the movie. Haley Bailey, who played the Little Mermaid, she's playing young Nettie. It's just an amazing, amazing film. Reverend Sharpton and Nan is going to be hosting free tickets for us to go to see the movie on Christmas Day at 4:00 p.m. at the AMC Magic Johnson Theater in Harlem on 125th Street. The show starts at 4:00 p.m. You can get a free ticket, but guess what? You have to have been attending the Huddle to get a free ticket from this here vicinity. And also, you have to sign up with me after tonight if you're interested in going. It is only, the free tickets are only going to be allotted to those who attend Huddle, and it is also going to be offered through various committees. So if you're a member of another committee of the New York City chapter, you will also get the opportunity to sign your name up. So don't sign up twice because you're only going to get one ticket. But we will be also awarding and giving away tickets on Christmas Day. So if you don't get to get your guests in, or you want your brother to go, you want your daughter to go, or you want your sister to go, make sure they come on Christmas Day because we'll be giving it out first come, first serve on Christmas Day. But those of us that come to Huddle, that have been coming to the Huddle forums, will get a chance to sign up tonight. Throughout December 20th, you can sign up if you would like to attend and get a free ticket to attend this show. 4:00 p.m. on Christmas Day. That's Monday, December 25th, 4:00 p.m. at the Magic Johnson Theater. So thank you to Reverend Al and National Action Network for making sure that members of NAN get the opportunity to go and enjoy this film. It's really, really amazing, and we hope that you love it as well. Thank you so much for your time.
Let's give Dominique a hand. And let me just ask a real quick question. Ashley and JT, how was the screening? I know you guys went to the premiere. You guys liked it? Oh, yeah, that's good news, but she's still sitting down. Anybody else got good news? Come on. Go ahead, Gino. Okay, well, let Gino go ahead. Go ahead, Gino.
Hi, everyone.
All right, Gino.
I got my test results back from my math quiz, and I ended up getting 100. So, yeah.
Very good.
Hey y'all. So my good news is that this is my 3rd year with the Huddle, and I just want to encourage everybody that's watching on live, everybody that's here, to just bring whatever teenagers, young ones that you have, just bring them here, because it taught me so much. It opened my eyes to a lot of things that I didn't know before, I know now, and it's easier to navigate through life. So this has been a blessing. Thank you to Ashley. Thank you to my auntie, Miss Gina Williams. And thank you for my new lead representative, Christian, because he's been helping me a lot.
Thank you. Anybody else?
My good news is that I was in the store in the middle of the night, and I seen a gentleman come with a shopping cart as he was a hobo, meaning a bum, and he was asking for money, and he had, you know, like a few cans in his cart, and then I seen a young lady come in the store, and she seemed to be, you know, a person that was constantly inebriated on crack cocaine, and she was beside herself, you know, fumbling and bumbling, and the gentleman seen that she needed help, so he proceeded to make her soup for her and make her tea for her, and she picked up a few cakes, and then she turned around at me and said, "You want anything?" Then she paid for everything that she wanted, gave him a couple dollars, and proceeded to walk out happily with the things that she needed, because she got help that she wasn't able to do all the things that she needed to do. That made me go inside my telephone and text my son, the rapper, and tell him, yo, people like you and I that is running around, you know, in the dark helping people, need to keep doing it. And I sat here and I listened to Ashley talking. Ashley, you are a woman king. Straight like that. And everybody better bow down. Understand what's going on. Because the youth, the children are the future. And we got to teach them well and let them lead the way. The youth huddle? I mean, are your ears open? All right.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Gina.
So yes, thank you, Ashley Sharpton, for coming up with the concept and the idea of Youth Huddle and making sure that we're all here, and to everyone that is a part of it. So the good news today is, as our illustrious Reverend Al Sharpton always reminds us about reparations, today was a rally down at 633 3rd Avenue, and that's on 40th Street. And it was a great rally. However, there was limited amount of people, to my surprise. I was a little disappointed about that. However, the message was effective. What's important is that today is December the 12th, and their 11th, tomorrow, December the 12th, I believe marks the 6 months that the legislation has been passed, right? And it's bill number S1163. Now, what's interesting about this is that Comptroller Brad Lander made a whole announcement about the injustice of racial economic wealth in this country, especially in New York City. And this is an eye-opener because as the bill has been sitting on our governor's desk, we need to have her use her powerful pen and sign it. Just like how we had to put the action out and do a petition for her to sign the class size matter, which I initiated, that petition that we sent to her. We need to do the same thing, because if this bill does not pass by the end of this month, it's off the table. Off. That means somebody has to come back again and rewrite it, and then they'll get another number. But why should we have to wait that long? So the call to action today is for everyone to share this information, to email the governor, to call the governor and ask her to please use her powerful pen and sign this bill, because that is the delay. And we should not be delayed any further. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gina.
How you doing, Nan Huddle, Youth Huddle? I am Lorenzo Vaughn, president of the Nan Performing Activist Troupe. And after having a successful talent showcase for Thanksgiving, I've been tapped to host the Christmas Talent Showcase as the one and only Godfather of Soul, James Brown. So James Brown will be back in town Christmas Day. Can I get a hey, hey? All right. I'm black and I'm proud. So, I've been working with a group called The Collective, and this Wednesday at 4 brothers, 2 sisters, about 7 p.m. They're having a toy drive with my sister, Queen Tasha B. So there'll be a coat and toy drive on 116th between, I think that's 1st and 2nd Avenue. So y'all can come on down, check us out. There'll be other performers. And yeah, I'm just glad to be alive. That's the good news.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. As I was my name is I'm Minister Sandra. I'm from the Bronx of New York. Minister Sandra E. Henson Simpson. Because when I get my rides, my name is on the list. When they call me, it's Simpson, but it's Henson. It's Henson and Simpson. As I was sitting at a table, dinner, in the restaurant, and I have been following Dr. Reverend Al Sharpton since my daughter was 1 year old, when he got arrested at that precinct over there on 119th Street. I was out there. I was out there with my daughter when she was a toddler. I don't like when people don't understand the information that Dr. Reverend Al Sharpton gives us. And people, it bothers me, I'm sorry. When people, like my daughter, talks about how how he steals money. He doesn't steal money. You know why she doesn't understand? She doesn't come here to listen to Dr. Reverend Al Sharpton. And the good news is, Sister Gina, she sat and talked with her and told her about the information that she worked side by side with Dr. Reverend Al Sharpton. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on, Terrence is our last person, and then we're moving on.
I will. Hello, everyone. First, want to give praise and grateful to God that I'm even here, and also I'm thanking NAN and for the work that you young people are doing. I think it's wonderful. But my good news is I've been accepted to sing with our choir here at NAT thank you, with Tyrone Jefferson and Richardson. I meant to say Richardson. I didn't mean to say Jefferson. That's Tina's name. Sorry, I meant to say Richardson. Anyway, that's my good news. And I would just leave it there. So, thank you.
All right, Terrence, with our last good good news, I'm sorry. I was on Did You Know.
How y'all doing, everybody? I don't really talk a lot, but this is the good news section, right? Good news is I'm alive. I don't talk. Of course, everybody know I'm Terrence Floyd. I'm George Floyd's brother, and I don't talk about my. This is more like a testimony because I've been through a lot. Before 2020, I had a life, and my life was crazy. Let's just talk about health. 2023, I had a car accident, near fatal car accident, where I had a hemorrhagic stroke, which left me with left side paralysis. That's why some of y'all see me walk with a limp. And I try to hide it and walk with a bop and stuff like that, but I've learned over the years that don't be ashamed of your testimony. It's been 20 years, and my son was about to be born when I was in a coma for a week. Came out of the hospital, had to learn how to walk again, talk again, had to even do cognitive therapy to learn how to think straight. But here I stand. And I just want to share my testimony and stop being scared of it and nervous. You know, because sometimes I walk and I trip and I feel ashamed, but I'm still here. I could get up, I could get back up, and I could walk, continue to walk, because I remember when I was in the wheelchair. I remember when I went from the wheelchair to the walker, from the walker to the cane, you know, and once I started walking, I said, I don't need it no more. I'm just grateful to God, and that's my good news.
A walking, breathing miracle. Now I see why Reverend Sharpton calls him Reverend Terrence Floyd. He got up here and gave us a sermon. Keep it up, Terrence.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. All right, this here poem is about Ashley Sharpton, all right? So please be quiet so you can hear it.
Isn't that sweet?
Ashley Sharpton, the backbone of Huddle. A trailblazer breaking down boundaries every day. Through Huddle, she is leading the way. Making a strong foundation, her and her sister are changing lives. Both are standing strong and firm at their father's side. With their mom always lending a hand, together they are the backbone of Nan. Katrina Jefferson, Patrice Perry, Debbie, and Michael too, with a host of others who make up the Nan crew. We stand together in a nonviolent fight to show the power of God and His might. We stand together in Huddle for the youth at bay. We stand together in unity in every way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ernest. Wasn't that a good poem? Did anybody else know that Mr. Ernest was a poet? Well, look, we learned something new today. All right. That is the end of our good news for tonight. We had some wonderful good news, didn't we? All righty. So now we are going to have our first Did You Knows, and our first two Did You Knows for tonight are going to be very simple and quick. There were no questions with the first two Did You Knows, okay? So don't look to come on the line or nothing like that. It's going to be quick and easy. We're going to get the first two out of the way so that we can get to the other two that are going to take a little while, but we're not going to take a long time because we're going to cut y'all off. All right? All right. So for our first Did You Know, we have Dan. Let's give Dan a hand.
All right. Salutations again, Nan family. Article titled "For Your Health: Holiday Stress Management Tips for Young Adults" goes on. As the holidays are supposed to be a time of joy, celebration, and togetherness. But for most people, the holiday season is definitely not the jolliest time of year. Young people in particular find the holidays stressful. A Healthline survey found that 65% of Generation Z were stressed out by the holiday season, a higher number than either millennials or baby boomers, the article states. What makes this season so difficult? Family drama was one of the top reasons cited in the survey, along with finances and struggles with eating and exercise. Grief and loss can also feel particularly intense during the holidays. For young people who are dealing with trauma, anxiety, depression, substance use disorder, or another mental health issue, the challenges of the holidays can make symptoms worse, according to the National Alliance on Mental Illness. 2/3 of those with mental health concerns report that the holidays make their conditions worse. Real life is a lot messier and more complicated than a Hallmark movie for Hallmark holiday movies. In addition, mental health during the holidays often takes a nosedive because we're thrown off our usual self-care schedules. However, committing to simple yet effective holiday stress management strategies can help young adults navigate the season without falling prey to the holiday blues. Because family is traditionally at the center of holiday activities, family relationships or the lack of these relationships are one of the biggest factors contributing to the holiday blues. So I know some of y'all probably had experienced the holidays blues before, but let us keep in mind these 7 tips that are coming up. So the article goes on to say, but even families who have strong and caring relationships can hit snags at this time of the year. Spending lots of time together in close quarters often brings up old conflicts and disagreements. It can even trigger age regression when young adults who are returning home after living on their own can fall back into the rebellious behaviors that they had as teens. And that's important, so let's keep that in mind when we think about these tips. Particularly true for some is that if their parents haven't adjusted yet to treating them as fellow adults rather than children. So the tips in the article are revealed as, number 1, create healthy boundaries. Number 2, get enough sleep. Number 3, remember that you're not the only one feeling the holiday blues. Number 4, maintain your regular exercise schedule. Number 5, do something for others. Number 6, set realistic expectations. And in the end, number 7, focus on what's meaningful for you about the holiday seasons. And my ask is in regards to asking the audience if y'all have more tips. And I'm also interested to know if anyone feels as though generational trauma has anything to do with high levels of stress during holiday seasons, whether that has anything co-aligned with shopping, accessing shopping, trying to gift things, feeling stressed out about not knowing what would be the best gift for your loved one or the most constructive gift for your loved one, and how we manage that stress during the season where we know giving is very, very popular, as some are festive during the holiday winter solstice. So does anyone in the audience have any more tips on how stress can be managed during the holiday season? Hand over in the audience, my microphone back here can't reach you. Please come up to the microphone. If we got answers to questions, Christian, do you want to guide me on how we get these answers in under, what is it, 1 minute? 30 seconds. All right. Would either of y'all like to go first?
Thank you, Dan. Who's first? It don't matter. Come on.
Hi, I just wanted to say to beat stress, focus on the purpose of the holidays. There are many holidays, but it's all about heaven's presence on earth. And many of these people who've done good and share, we could call them saints. So the main purpose of holiday isn't the commercialism, it's the miracles that angels speak to us. And I learned the other day that the gender is the heart, male and female reproductive systems. It's our heart.
Thank you. All right. Come on. 30 seconds.
My answer is simple, prayer.
Prayer.
I lost my mother in this month. Well, we lost our mom 42 years ago. Like the young sister said, pray, be around people that love you, respect you, and understand you.
Thank you.
Yes, all of us here, we know somebody that's alone. You want to stop them from having stress? Be their company. Because sometimes when people are alone, they need company. They need somebody to say, I love you. They need to know that somebody cares. They need to know that somebody's there. Go to the store for somebody. Help somebody across the street. If you see somebody getting on the bus, pulling a wagon, pick the wagon up and help them. It doesn't hurt to help anybody. Show a little love and a little kindness. This is the season about giving, but don't just do it for this season. Do it all year round.
Thank you. And last but not least, Tony.
Ask this question as often as possible to yourself. What would love do now?
Thank you, Tom.
That's all I got.
Thank you, Tony. And thank you, Dan, for that great Did You Know, but was really information. Really take what Dan said. The holidays is a time, no matter how raw your grief may be, the holidays is still a time where everybody is grieving. No matter how long you may have lost your family members, there is still a moment of grieving. And if you know somebody that is alone during the holidays, especially this time, bring them here to the House of Justice on Christmas morning. Let them have a meal. Let them be around other people that are going through the same thing, or even not even going through the same thing, just want to be a lending hand to somebody that's going through. All right? All right. Now we're going to have our next Did You Know by Giselle. Come on, Giselle.
Thank you, Christian. So, as y'all know, we do Did You Knows, because you may not have known. So today, my Did You Know is about schools sending more kids into the hospital. 3 times a week, on average, a police car pulls up to a school in Wicomo, hopefully I'm saying that right, County on Maryland's Eastern Shore. A student is brought out, handcuffed, and placed inside for transport to a hospital emergency room for a psychiatric evaluation. Over the past 8 years, the process has been used at least 750 times on students. Some are as young as 5 years old. So imagine that, a 5-year-old probably throwing a minor temper tantrum in school, and the best solution that they feel is to send this 5-year-old to to a psychiatric hospital to get an evaluation. Would y'all want y'all kids to go through that? Okay. The state law that allows for these removals, known as petitions for emergency evaluation, is meant to be limited to people with severe mental illness who are endangering their own lives or safety or someone else's. It's the first step toward getting someone involuntarily committed to a psychiatric hospital. But advocates say schools across the country are sending children to the emergency room for psychiatric evaluations in response to behaviors prompted by bullying or frustration over assignments. The ER trips, they say, often follow months and sometimes years of their needs not being met. Black students are more frequently subjected to these removals than their peers. According to available data, advocates point to students with disabilities also being removed at higher rates. Schools focus on keeping kids out rather than on keeping kids in, said Dan Stewart, managing attorney at the National Disability Rights Network. I think that's the fundamental crux of things. Schools in Wicomico, okay, I said it right this time. Wicomico County agreed not to misuse emergency petitions as part of a 2017 settlement with the U.S. Department of Justice. But while the number of suspensions and expulsions declined, mandated trips to the emergency room ticked up. Last year, children were handcuffed and sent to the emergency room at least 117 times from Wicomico schools, about once per every 100 students, according to the data obtained from public records requests to the Wicomico County Sheriff's Office. At least 40% were 12 or younger. More than half were Black children, even though a little more than a third of Wicomico public school children are Black. In interviews, dozens of students, parents, educators, lawyers, and advocates for students with disabilities in Wicomico County said a lack of resources and trained staff combined with a punitive culture in some schools are behind the misuse of emergency petitions. One Wicomico mom who asked for anonymity because she feared retaliation from the school recalled the terror she felt when her son's school called and said they were going to have him assessed for a forced psychiatric hospitalization. When she arrived at the school, she said her son was already in handcuffs. He was put in the back of a police car and taken to the hospital. So they didn't inform her before when she got there, he was already sent to the hospital without an adult. Mind you, he's a minor. She recalled school officials telling her he doesn't have special needs, he just has anger issues. They were trying to get him out of the school. Her son had grown increasingly discouraged and agitated over an assignment he was unable to complete, she said. The situation escalated, she said, when the teacher argued with him. He knocked a laptop on his desk to the floor, and the school called for an emergency petition. After being taken to the hospital in handcuffs, he was examined and released. Emergency petitions are not used for disciplinary purposes and frequently do not result from a student's behaviors, Tracy Saller said in an email. In fact, a majority of EPs are related to when a student exhibits suicidal ideation or plans of self-harm. By law, certain classroom removals must be recorded. Suspensions, expulsions, and arrests are the most commonly documented indicators of racial disparities in discipline. Schools are required by law to publicly report the data, which often triggers oversight and investigations. But with the exceptions of Florida and New York City, most places do not routinely collect information on removals from school for psychiatric assessments. Without that data, there is no way to hold schools accountable, said Daniel Lawson, Senior Director for the Education Team at the National Center for Youth Law. The civil rights of children is at stake because it is more likely it is going to be Black kids and kids with disabilities who are subjected to all kinds of biases that deny them an educational opportunity, he said. Because emergency petitions happen outside the standard discipline process, missed school days are not recorded as suspensions. For students with disabilities that have special consequences, they are not supposed to be removed from class for more than 10 days without an evaluation of whether they are receiving the support they need. If you use the discipline process and you're a student with a disability, your rights kick in, said Celine Alamazan, legal director for the Council of Parent Attorneys and Advocates. In many places around the country, the resources needed to support students with disabilities are scarce. And the practice isn't just happening in Wacomico. Recent data shows New York City schools still call police to take children in emotional distress to the emergency room despite a 2014 legal settlement in which they agreed to stop the practice. A Kentucky school district was found to have used a psychiatric assessment on kids more than 1,000 times a year. In Florida, thousands of school-aged children have been subjected to the Baker Act, the state's involuntary commitment statute. In a settlement with the Education Department's Office of Civil Rights, the Stockton Unified School District in California agreed to protocols that require other interventions before referring students with disabilities for psychiatric evaluation. On Maryland's Eastern Shore, lawyers and advocates for families said the spectrum of alternatives for students is both limited by both money and geography. Those can exclude private out-of-district placements in specialized classrooms for specific needs, like dyslexia, for example. In cases where children needed targeted services unavailable in a local district, the district must allow them to be educated outside the school system and pay for it. After the settlement, which had a 2.5-year monitoring period, the number of suspensions and expulsions in Wacomico declined markedly for Black and white students, but the number of emergency petitions, which don't appear in state statistics, has ticked up. Other measures of exclusionary discipline remained high, including school arrest in 2021 through 2022. Wacomico had 210 school-based arrests, the second highest number in the state, while they were the 15th in student enrollment. More than 3/4 of the children arrested were Black and 80% were students with disabilities. Monitoring the numbers doesn't bring you the solution, said Lawson from the National Center for Youth Law. In many districts, the problem is more than what they're doing with the discipline. The Department of Justice declined to comment. So that concludes my Did You Know? And as you know, being an advocate for the youth in general, I feel like these elected officials and legislators need to work together to kind of ensure the safety of the education for misunderstood students, because there's a lot of students that get bullied in school and that have already going through something at home, and they may lash out or act out because we're all humans, we have emotions. But I feel like it's wrong to just be so quick to throw them somewhere that could make them more irate. So I feel like all the legislators and the elected officials, they need to work together to ensure the safety for misunderstood students. And also, we have an education committee and a crisis department here as well. So if any families feel like their students or their kids are not getting the best education, they could come here, file a complaint, and we could probably help out with that. Any comments?
I'm going to need about a minute. What I'm hearing is that the education department, actually the government, needs to understand something that is not obvious, but when you understand it, it becomes obvious, which is, I created a course called Thinking Made Easy. The purpose of it is to teach people how to use our brain, because we have 5 structures that our brain goes through. First one is we observe something, whether we see it, smell it, hear it, feel it. Second is we have a feeling about what we observed, which makes us react. The third is we have a thought about what we felt. Then we have to decide between taking action about how we felt or what we thought, and then 5, take action, which sometimes is procrastination. And we actually have 13 different functions that we do go through this. There's 13 different brain functions. So if this education, the Board of Ed actually understood how the brain really worked, not the physical looking of it, like the way people's brains move around, then they wouldn't get upset with 5-year-olds and 7-year-olds and control them because they don't like them. Because then they'll be doing what I say is the 5th of my 5 golden rules, which is called the poison rule. Do unto others exactly the way you would never want anyone to do unto you. That's what they're doing to our kids, and I want them to go away, and that's all I got.
Okay, so Christian wants me to remind everybody that there is a 35-second rule for speaking. So I added on 5 extra seconds because he said 30.
Okay, so with respect to that, there's a couple of different unfolding layers here. So one of them are, according to the 504 Title I for the Disabilities Act, what happens is that the education system develops a plan that they work with the child, the parent, and the disabilities team. They come up with a plan. So the first call should not be to call a psych ward on a child. There are layers to this and steps, age appropriate. So they have timeouts, a 10-second rule. They have fidget desk. They have play therapy. They have drawing. They have all types of steps that can be initiated. However, when instructors fail to take those steps or even incorporate it into our IEP, that's where this goes wrong. And it's even doubly wrong when a child is in a foster care system, because that's automatic dollars for them, again, to keep putting children in psych wards. 4 Wings is one, and it's further up in Westchester County. And children go through there like a revolving door. And they always put our children on medication. So first of all, a child has to be diagnosed with whatever their disability might be, but they must be applying the appropriate steps in order to educate them. And that's what is not happening, unfortunately, in our educational system. And especially if it's a private sector too, because they're not using the tools or referring the parents to get their child assessed appropriately for the care that they need. And then the other part of it is the different measures, God bless you, that should be put in place: speech, occupational, physical therapy. All of those components are not available sometimes within the school system. So what are they supposed to do? Refer out, and the DOE is supposed to pay for that as well. So a lot of people don't know those steps. Thank you.
Thank you.
I understand what you were saying, but the first thing they do, they call 911. That's what the schools does. They call that number to come and put handcuffs on our children, and that's what they do. So that's it.
I'm a teacher. I have my master's in special ed and my bachelor's in common branches early childhood. In '96, our country went through a little bad stuff, and Title I was the president and the Congress, and then it became the 504 special ed because they're getting more money. In this country, they're making people disabled. Early childhood, the brother was right when you talk about when a children first learns, it's about feeding. An infant, if they're not fed right, that's why we have women, infant, and children, they will develop emotional, like they're not loved, and they'll become, something is wrong if they don't get fed. There's different cries of babies. Then they start to learn by putting things in their mouth. Then they start to learn by touching and feeling the different textures of stuff and a whole bunch of stuff. Early childhood has to be really special teachers. They have music. They don't teach, they make it fun, and they learn through playing. So if anybody calls on a 5-year-old, it's because they want to rob money from that state and from the federal government, and we have to stop this. There is the American for Disabilities Rights. We know certain people have disabilities, but some people say they have a disability to get more money, and it started with insurance jobs and ambulance chasers. So our schools, there is no accountability anymore in the schools because of all the immorality. And I just want to say that the world would be better if we look at boys and girls, men and women, number one, and love. What I said before, that's in the Bible. Your heart and love makes children. So you have to be responsible of mating. Animals, children aren't even supposed to know about that. They learn about the birds and the bees. That's what the older generation used to call it. And then when it comes time for them to grow up and they become a man or a woman with menses or, wet dreams, whatever, they say, oh, there's a mating season and a dating season. And that's what we need to focus on, morals and ethics, and stop this putting kids on drugs. And that's all I want to say.
Thank you.
This deeply concerns me because as I consider this, I recall a movie by Nicolas Cage called Duplicates. And in this movie, they found an algorithm to download the consciousness of a person's brain. This is old knowledge, that they can download the consciousness of your brain and put it into a new being that they have created that has no consciousness. So older people are trying to regenerate themselves through new creatures. So they are trying to stop children from being at all. And I remember they were saying we're coming after your children when they were marching in Manhattan. They have to stop this because the children are the future. You're trying to control them, and by trying to control them, you are going to cause them to be out of control.
That was very deep.
Yes, when you take a young child and you put them in handcuffs or put them in a police car, that puts them in trauma, okay? And then they grow up with a hate towards cops. And a lot of times when that happens, it produces more crime. And if the person didn't even do anything, they run. Why? Because they don't like cops, because they know what happened to them when they was young. So a lot of times through our memory and the stuff that they do to us when we're young, we never forget it when we get older, because we always remember that one thing. We were 6, 7 years old. They put handcuffs on us, which they're not supposed to do. And they put us in the back of a cop car. If it's not for enjoyment, it's to mess us up.
Thank you, Mr. Waters. Last comment, and then we'll continue with our third Did You Know?
Hello, my grandmother is Elaine Parson. I went to 92. Adam Clayton Powell, mother was my librarian. And she said reading is fundamental. You gotta make it fun. You can't just read from the book. You gotta have activities. I'm a licensed peer educator. I work with children. I've been working with children, and I like working with children. I like giving back human resources.
Shout out to all the teachers who try. Shout out to all the teachers who love the kids, because we need more people like that in the world. And like I said, we need everybody to get together to ensure the safety for students' educations. And like I said, we have an educational committee here, and we also have a crisis department here. So if you have any concerns, you feel like your kid is not getting the education that they deserve, you need to file a complaint, you need to talk to a lawyer. they're treating your kid unfair, come here and we may be able to help you. So that concludes my Did You Know? Thank you for all the comments.
Thank you, Giselle. All righty, so me and Dominique, we have the more spicier topic, so I'm going to go first because hers is a little bit more spicier than mine. But as you know, does anybody know what is coming up in 11 months? The election. Does anybody know what's coming up? Well, no, we don't really have a presidential primary like that. So, yes, the election is coming up in 11 months from today. So we need to keep that in mind. Who are the two people that are, well, it's more than two people, but who are the two likely people to be running in 2024? Trump and Biden. All right, so my Did You Know for today, it is 19 pages, but I'm not reading all of this. I have condensed it to 2 pages. Biden is struggling to connect with key Democratic voters. Is Trump enough to fix it? All right, so I'm going to be bouncing around a little bit, so y'all are going to have to stay with me. Is that all right? Because I can't read all 19 pages. Time is fleeting. Now, Washington. On day one, executive orders addressing racial inequality. More federal loans for black businesses, actions to lower prescription drug prices, and gap the crippling cost of insulin. Putting in that work for Black America, a narrator says in a President Biden campaign ad that ran this fall listing these accomplishments. These people, the people she met with, are worried about thousands of low-income Georgians being removed from the state's Medicaid programs and cuts to childhood assistance and food stamps. They struggle to identify what Biden has done for their communities. Now, let me say that again. Thousands of low-income Georgians. Ashley told us earlier that there is a discrepancy and a disproportionate wealth gap between black and white Americans. Now you have low-income people that are going to be losing Medicaid programs, cuts in childhood assistance, and food stamps. Biden won Georgia in 2020. Does anybody know, you don't have to give me the exact number, but does anybody have an estimate of how many votes did Biden win against Trump in Georgia? Just throw out a number. Go ahead, Tony. That's good. Wow, how did you do that? Look at Tony. Tony got the exact number. President Biden won Georgia by 11,779 votes. All right? Any softening in black support would kill his chances of a Peach State repeat. With the 2024 presidential election, how many months away? 11 months away. Democrats are rattled by polls showing Biden trailing former President Donald Trump in a rematch and is worried that President Biden's legislative accomplishments, which include historic funding for infrastructure, has anybody travels across the Cross Bronx? Anybody travels across, the Bruckner? What about, what is that highway? I think that's the Major Deacon before going into Pelham. Has anybody seen that? When you go onto that highway, does anybody notice a new green sign that is put there? And what does that green sign say? Nobody knows, I'll tell you. It says, courtesy of the bipartisan infrastructure law. Infrastructure that was never going to happen for years. Or infrastructure that was normally given to white communities were now given to communities like the Bronx that needed infrastructure increase. Today, earlier, right before Huddle started, Goldie and I were watching the news, and we saw that a building collapsed just 10 minutes away from here, right across the bridge. So our infrastructure is crippling. They say New York City is sinking. But let me tell you that it's not New York, it's Manhattan that is sinking. So I feel bad for all of you that live in this borough, because in the Bronx we are safe. And I'm not worried about no storms or nothing. Every time a hurricane comes, it passes right over us. We inland. But all of y'all that are Harlem and Manhattan folks, and even Brooklyn and Queens, and please don't be on Staten Island because you are done. And don't come to the Bronx looking for no shelter. Let me get back on track. All right, historic funding for infrastructure and the climate. We have a climate issue. And anybody that says that there is no climate issue in the world, you are crazy. The world is hotter than it has ever been. All right? The glaciers are melting. Sea levels are rising because glaciers are melting. Glaciers. And President Biden also spearheaded new manufacturing jobs. Yet, this has not resonated with key voters. Last week, a poll found that only 59% of black voters and 45% of Hispanic voters said they would vote for Biden in a race against Trump. This is new data. Let me say that again. 59% of black voters and 45% of Hispanic voters say they will vote for Biden. This is a decrease from the voting that President Biden won 92% of black voters in America. Did you hear what I said? What did I say? 92%. He was 8 points away from receiving 100% of black voters in America. Isn't that something? And 62 and 69% of Latino voters in 2020. That's what President Biden won in 2020, 92% and 69%. Some say that black voters don't feel that their lives have been improved much in the past 3 years. Amid the president's legislative victories, this is one issue. Can anybody guess what this one issue is that everybody says that they're feeling? Inflation. Okay, they got quiet. Inflation. Even though it is substantially lower, it has increased more than 17% during Biden's term, while wages have only gone up 13%. Yes, we are seeing wages increased. We are seeing unions like never before. Does anybody in here have a job with a union? Or has had a job with the union? Don't unions treat people good? Donald Trump said he wanted to get rid of them. That's what he said out of his mouth. Unions cripple America, him and Ron DeSantis. Two things. But let me give you another thing. For Biden to run again, they are saying that 70% of voters, particularly black voters, say that they are concerned about his age and concerned about his mental sharpness, health, and ability to handle the job. Let me say something, I had to search it up. Democrats and even Republicans called for the former president to take a cognitive thinking test while he was in office and even before he took office. Does anybody know what Donald Trump's answer was? No. He said, I refuse. He said, nobody is smarter than me. Smartest man in the world. He didn't say those exact words, but he said it along the lines. That he don't need the test. I would have even taken the test, and my mind is not sharp, but I do have some brain cells. We don't know what this man got going on in his head, yet he is the leader of the free world. Nobody has a problem with that? Everybody stay quiet. All right. Democratic operators, in states that could decide the election are quick to praise Biden for rebuilding the economy, coming out of a global pandemic, and pushing a progressive agenda through a divided Congress. He is one of the first presidents in modern history. Even President Obama and all the work that he tried to do could not get through to the divided Congress that he had to deal with. There are not many other presidents in modern history that dealt with what President Obama dealt with. And we have to admit that and say it out loud. But President Biden was able to push through that and get key legislation on a bipartisan backing. Bipartisan means to have both houses agree on one bill. What time is it? All right. Okay. Have two more points. But they are banking, Democrats are banking, that the threat of Trump's second presidency would and should fire up Democrats. But polls are not showing that. The signs are that younger voters, younger than 30, the age 18 to 30, 60% to 36% is what Biden got versus Trump. Biden got 60% of voters in 2020, young voters in 2020, 18 to 30. And Trump got 36. Now, a more recent poll is saying that 49% of voters, 28 to 29, definitely plan to vote in the next election, but this has dropped from the 57%, which was in 2019. So from 2019, 57% said that they would vote. Now it is down to almost 10 points to 49. The polls show a steeper decline in planned participation among young Republicans than Democrats. So that's a kind of a good thing. Younger Republicans are saying that they don't want to vote, which is good. But this decline is giving an increase to independent candidates. My question, is America ready for a third party? All right. A majority of young Americans and young voters and a group that Biden carried in 2020 are saying that they plan to sit out of the 2024 election. That young voters say that America has failed them, that America is just too crazy, and that they cannot decide on being a Democrat or Republican. And because independent candidates are rejected in most state ballots. Did you know that? That most states, which are predominantly southern states, which are the swing states, if we had 3 people run for office, there is a high chance that none of them would get to the 270 electoral votes to become president because it's too uneven. My last point. Biden's support for Israel amid its war against Hamas threatens to dampen support from younger voters and progressives. There are 6 people in Congress. One of them happens to be a representative from the Bronx, have gone through censure in Congress. Does anybody know what censure is? When you're censured, that means you cannot fulfill certain legislative duties, to put it real quick. Now, Jamal Bowman, he was censured because, I'm not going to say what he did. He know what he did. But they're censuring him and 5 other people because they say that we cannot just fully support Israel, but that we also need to back Palestine. and speak to the death on both sides. Now, what we have is the Republican majority saying, we have to censure these people. Because now, I'm not going to get into Dominique's did you know, because her did you know, and that's why I'm trying to rush so that we can get to her. But the polls are saying that it is worrisome, but they believe that Biden could and might still defeat Trump. At Howard University in Washington, D.C., hundreds of students gathered on their campus in October for a pro-Palestine rally. Speakers called out the Biden administration for not demanding a ceasefire. Does anybody know what happened recently this week? The top UN official for America that was representing them in the Security Council was the only country to not vote for an immediate ceasefire. Every country, with the exception of the UK, they abstained from their vote. They said, I'm not going to vote. But every other country said, we need a ceasefire. Who did not raise their hand? America. And this is now what is pulling young voters and black voters. And as Ashley said, black people are now starting to realize, oh my God, there are African and black people that are in this war. And now they're saying President Biden isn't doing nothing. Black people are dying. Black people die every day and nobody says nothing. Yet now look. But Biden's biggest liability still remains inflation, which has overshadowed other positive economic metrics that Biden has sought credit for, such as low unemployment and strong economic growth. Biden has embraced the slogan of Bidenomics, which taunts the progress, but the message is muddled by food cost that remains high despite inflation that has cooled significantly last year. They also believe that the president should target price reduction. Trump said, more Americans said that they trust Trump more than Biden to improve the economy. People are saying now they want the businessman back. They want the man that was able to take over America. Let's not forget what Ms. Gina told us last week. Trump does not want to keep democracy alive. He wants to keep the Trump name alive. Trump had every right to Trump had every right to take over America. He had every right first to take over New York. Trump took over New York. He tried. Rudy Giuliani gave him the okay. Trump had a name in almost every building in Manhattan, and somehow his name got plastered on every major building. And still, some of these buildings still have Trump's names in them. Now, this is what he wants to do with America. He wants to say, I am the face of America, and I want my name to be everywhere. He wants to get rid of the Affordable Health Care Act. They had to stop calling it Obamacare because he hated Obama so much. So he said, if y'all want to keep this thing going, we're not calling this Obamacare. We're going to call it the Affordable Health Care Act. And so now he's saying, you know what, scratch that. We don't want nothing else to do with it. Now we don't want no health care. And people think that the Affordable Health Care Act means universal health care, Dan, and everybody get health care. That's not what that is. The Affordable Health Care is reduced payment on health care that people here need. Ashley told us that white Americans are making $120,000 something compared to black people with, I believe, $20,000. How does that make sense? A $100,000 wealth gap, and they expect us not to need food stamps, not to need certain welfare, the Affordable Health Care Act. So what I want to say, and I'm going to open up a question, and y'all really have to be 30 seconds. I'm serious. What are your thoughts on the current president, and how do you feel if Donald Trump is reelected as president? I already have my plane ticket to Canada. Canada or Mexico. Can't move to the UK, but come on. Or I might move to Jamaica. It's warm there.
That's right. He's right, what he's saying, because remember when President Obama was the president and Joe Biden was his vice president? He still talks to Joe Biden, okay? He may be in another country, but he talks to him. We're still living under President Obama.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm going to say I'm Bible-based. The president puts his hands on a Bible. And in this country, you're supposed to, the first article of freedom is you must worship freely, but you must worship. So that means you could go to a mosque, a synagogue, a cathedral, a church, that's the two Christian, or a temple. Now, I ran for president and I told Africa who I am because I have a movie Kids in Africa. That's why Obama actually became president by some of the white people that were robbing me. And they're setting up Trump that he tried to save the building. So all I'm saying is Jesus died and he says the criminals are going to be with me. You don't know this, but the criminals, the robber of me used criminals. And the criminals, they tried to make me be around criminals. I accept everything because I understand when people are forced to do crime, that's how they killed Christ. They made them hungry. They paid them to do something wrong. So what I'm saying here is I'm going to run and be a write-in. Justice for All, JFA, independent, look for me. That's what I'm going to do because I feel God wants me to do it, but I don't trust the electric. We're not supposed to have electric. That's a third power. They did the blackout to change the dates of the movies. They were none in the 30s. When Eisenhower was the president, that's when sound and vision traveled through electrons, and they're robbing Mexican silver because it's the silver screen. That's why they're all coming here.
Thank you. Thank you. Come on.
How you doing? From 1984, they're all puppets.
I'm sorry, did you say they're all puppets? All of them. Puppets, that's good.
The Republicans have given up on the Republic. The Republicans have given up on the Constitution. The Republicans have decided that minority rule is the only way that they want to have the United States going. They want to dissolve the Constitution and have their minority opinion be the opinion of this nation, which no other nation can use force against without committing suicide. If we allow Trump and his supporters to hold the seat of power once again, there will not be another presidential election. We will lose the republic. And this isn't me being scared or hyperbole. This is his political promise that from day one, he will ignore the Constitution. From day one, he will use force and a minority opinion to govern this nation. That is not the republic I was born in, and I hope we can somehow vote to keep the republic alive.
That was good, and thank you. This is our new member. Thank you. And so I want to close with this. Keep the republic alive is real. And Donald Trump has all of the characteristics of a narcissist. Everything is about him. He wants it his way. And if it don't happen his way, it's never going to happen. And if it has to happen his way, it will happen by force. Donald Trump is a man of force. And we have seen him do it for years and have gone unchecked. And as the brother just said, we need to vote to keep the public alive. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, why to vote for them, because I have issues with you got to really pay attention with these elected officials. Everybody promises something, but are they truly doing what they promised? Exactly. So, in my closing, all I'm going to say is this. Know who you're voting for, why you're voting for them. Don't just vote for them because they're one party. People say, oh, as soon as I see a Republican, I'm voting for them. As soon as I see a Democrat, I'm voting for them. Sometimes the Democrats can be negative. Sometimes the Republicans can be negative. Vote for who is going to have the best interest in you and what you need. All right? All right. Now we are going to have our final Did You Know by our co-founder, Ms. Dominique Sharpton. Let's give Damo a hand.
Thank you. It is very hard to follow Christian, but I'm going to do my best. I mean, you're up for when Rev is out next time for the Saturday Action Rally. I'm going to call Christian because that brother lays it all the way out with no apologies. Thank you so much. So this article, and many of us have been, of course, staying very privy to this. I don't know if y'all watched the news over the weekend. But there's a sister who is the president of Harvard University. And recently, there's been some heat, as we say, as young people say, around some of the presidents of these prestigious universities. My article is entitled, Why Defenders of Harvard's President Are Focused on Academic Freedom. The petition that emerged on this past Sunday as Dr. Claudine Gay, the president of Harvard University, faced escalating pressure to resign, took only 2 sentences to make its case to the institution's leader. The statement in support of Dr. Gay urged the university to resist political pressures that are at odds with Harvard's commitment to academic freedom. It added, the critical work of defending a culture of free inquiry in our diverse community cannot proceed if we let its shape be dictated by outside forces. By Monday afternoon, nearly 700 members of Harvard's faculty, almost 1/3, had signed support for Dr. Gay, who had come under fire for her answers last week at a congressional hearing on anti-Semitism. The principle of academic freedom has been a contested cornerstone of the American Academy for more than a century. Supporters believe that helping to insulate teachers from interference can make faculty members more likely to foster debate, take on thorny subjects, and champion ideas that might ultimately advance scholarship. With a broad range of views at Harvard about the Israel-Hamas conflict, the faculty members who organized the petition backing Dr. Gay predicted that an appeal focused on academic freedom would resonate most deeply. The statement also argued that professors were entitled to freedom in the classroom in discussing their subject, but they should be careful not to introduce into their teaching controversial matter which has no relation to their subject. And it urged protections for professors so they could teach and research without fear of being fired. The constitutional protection of freedom of speech is related to academic freedom, but considered distinct by experts, in part because freedom of speech protects individuals from the government, while academic freedom relates to a professor's employment. Okay? Still, academic freedom is not quite a blank check. Just want to make sure y'all know. Many conservatives have long been skeptical about the seeming broadness of the concept itself. Some have even accused teachers and professors of cloaking themselves in principle to dodge repercussions for marginalized conservative thinkers, and Republican policymakers have targeted the tenure policies that can shield professors. Restrictions on classroom materials and lesson plans have also fueled worries about censorship.
Debate about the nature of academic freedom has also unfolded on campuses with dozens of disputes over the years about whether administrators were properly balancing discipline and academic independence. Harvard has not been immune to concerns about academic freedom, even as hundreds of faculty members have now rallied to Dr. Gay on that basis. In May, the month after dozens of professors announced what they christened the Council on Academic Freedom at Harvard, the campus newspaper published an article headlined, "Does Harvard Have an Academic Freedom Problem?" According to a recent survey published by the newspaper, more than a third of Harvard faculty said that they thought the university should place greater emphasis on academic freedom. But as Dr. Gay headed to Capitol Hill last week, she told lawmakers in a written submission that she believed Harvard prized open academic inquiry. She said, "We believe the best path to uncover truth is through open inquiry and robust debate. Harvard understands that the hatred is a symptom of ignorance. The cure for ignorance is knowledge, but the pursuit of truth is possible only when freedom of expression is protected and exercised. At Harvard, we will not allow discomfort or disagreement with opinions fairly expressed to impede this pursuit." So, with all that I said, and those of y'all who want me to break it down a little more, basically, we are saying, this article is saying that there is a thin line between what we perceive as academic freedom, what people are allowed to do in institutions as professors. So professors who have an opinion about something or they want to express or impose a certain opinion in a subject that they're covering in class have the wherewithal and freedom of speech in order to cover these topics in their classroom. However, when they step into a leadership position, such as Dr. Gay being the president of the institution, that no longer exists. Academic freedom is null and void. And freedom of speech becomes a problematic tool, especially when those who are in leadership positions figure to use it. Let me give you an example. Reverend Sharpton talked about this on Keeping It Real today, but as you know, the former President Donald Trump says a lot of things out his mouth that hurt others, that can be used as derogatory language towards a certain individual or certain culture or race. Well, he is still at liberty to say basically whatever he wants to say, whenever he wants to say it with no repercussions. However, when Dr. Gay, a black president of a university, a prestigious university, gets up and exploits her opinion in a subject matter, she gets deemed as, of course, freedom of speech is not appropriate for her to use in these terms. So the question becomes, and as we are, of course, dealing with what we say on Twitter versus what we say, being presidents of universities or being doctors or being lawyers or whatever, having prestigious roles in this country, the question of freedom of speech and how it relates to those who are in influential positions, definitely who use this freely, freedom of speech, to be able to say what they want and impose opinions that, of course, are offensive to other cultures and other people. There's a thin line here, and I just want for y'all to be able to comment, because I don't agree with the fact that Dr. Gay is being castigated for her comments or for her stance in standing up for students or not standing up for students who have expressed freedom of speech in their academic environment, but also if we are to look at across the board how people of color in leadership positions are often demonized, castricized when they use freedom of speech, but it becomes freedom of speech for other people to be able to use and speak freely as they would like to, and it just has no repercussions for us. Comments, questions, concerns?
So my comment is this. When you look at it from let me first tell you from a legal expert would tell you that Harvard is technically right in what they're doing. And the reason why is because even though the First Amendment protects our freedom of speech, that is from government and public facilities from infringing on our rights. But that does not go for private institutions. So if you are in a private business that is not funded by the government, that is not publicly funded, they have every right to infringe on your rights. That is why people always say, how come there are certain surveillance cameras that can be when you walk into an establishment? Because you no longer have freedom of privacy when you enter into a private space. So, from a legal perspective, they're doing everything by the book, whatever. But from a human perspective, I think that this is off. And it's wrong that somebody has to be muted because of a position that they hold. I believe that everybody should have the right to say what they want, and especially when it is in times of what is going on now. It is very hard for people to be quiet. It is very hard for people in a very difficult conversation to say, oh, okay, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to sit down and be quiet. I think what we all have to do is we have to take light that this is an issue that is going against her rights. And for her to now be being persecuted for speaking up for what she believes in, I think that that's wrong. So that's my opinion.
I'm Minister Sandra. I went back to register at BMCC, but I have to register online. It's hard for me to do it online, but I was trying to rush down here to get to the library, but I came here because it was timing. And I went to a student meeting, and one professor was there, and the rest was students. They're trying to knock the students out. See that if you don't keep up a 3 point or 2.5 average, they want to push us out. And the person told me years ago, you need to go to Bronx Community. Well, I got to go to Bronx Community, and I still have credits there. So the Asian, when I represented myself as a student coming back, they was happy about it. And I gave them suggestions of what to do. We as a people that work in this world, we need the response. We are responsible to help our people that are in leadership in these colleges. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi, good day, everybody, and God bless everybody, and I'm so glad that we're here together. I saw clips of that hearing, and in particular, the person who was questioning the Ms. Gay. In particular, she wanted, the questioner wanted a yes or no answer, and Ms. Gay said she cannot do that. It depends on the context, and she's absolutely right. Because if we think about academic freedom, now I thought of an example. Say, for example, they do a play, and a person is playing a racist. Obviously, the racist has to say racist things. So does that mean that play should not be performed because now they want to censor that type of language? So Ms. Gay's answer was excellent. They didn't like it, but it was true. It was the best answer she could give because context makes a difference. No one is supposed to be given a yes or no answer when an explanation is necessary. So based on this academic, what is that whole phrase? Freedom. Academic freedom. I worked as an educator, certainly not in these times, but this is in the 80s. But I know if I did teach in these times, I would exactly express what I needed to express depending on the circumstance. But I would personally do a disclaimer. Now say, for example, if I really want to talk against a racist like hardcore, I would then say in the disclaimer, please do not attempt to assault the racist that I just called out. Because again, too, in these days and times, it's very important for people who are in leadership positions to make sure that their statements are also clearly understood not to incite violence. That's necessary. That's a responsibility that all of us have, especially those of us, and myself included, highly opinionated, highly. But I know if I express my opinion in a very strong way, I am responsible for a disclaimer which says, we still must be peaceful, we still must abide by the law and protest in the most righteous way possible. We must always be conscious not to encourage anyone to be violent. This is what we all have to do and still keep our academic freedom. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
To me, it's a tough one to respond to because I don't have a lot of the details. Like Sister Ward mentioned, she had witnessed or watched whatever it was that she was watching from the congressional conversation that Dr. Gay had at, was it Capitol Hill? Yeah, hearing. All right, so I'm not exactly certain why the word castigation is resounding in my mind as something that has to do with classism, but in regards to academic freedom and liberties as an educator, it's important that the message that you're conveying to your audience, whether that's your students, your colleagues, or those who have an influence on how education is regulated, that the message be appropriate. I've had a lot of professors that had a creative way to explain what is fact so that the students were insightful and incited to be creative in their assignments and understanding their assignments and reporting back to the professor their findings if they had a particular task that they needed to respond to, etc. So as far as Professor Gay, first of all, we need to be saying congratulations, but it's important to emphasize following up and understanding more as to why Professor Gay gave the responses that she gave, because I'm undereducated about the particularities. I'm just being very vague, but I don't want this isolated example of communications to feel rogue to us as we are examining how to lead accredited institution of higher learning that is 500 level credits and above, because Harvard has a lot of prestige. It's important to understand why they hire, who they hire, and what it is that they're expecting from these particular educators. So with great expectations for Dr. Gay, I certainly hope that her heart is in the right place with what it is that she's mentioning. And at that particular level of education, we should be paying more attention to the details. So it would be great to hear more details in the future throughout next year as far as what the result of that conversation is or what the resultants are.
Thank you.
Hi, I see that slander wasn't even supposed to be a journalist. They weren't supposed to slander or show any sides. They were supposed to be impartial, same as teachers. As a teacher, you're not supposed to advocate to vote for somebody, show your political interest, or to evangelize and try to switch people in religions or anything like that. This professor is on the payroll of Harvard. She has to follow the rules. Donald Trump, Reverend Al, they are their own proprietor, they're in charge, so they can pretty much say what they want. But also take into consideration today that Twitter, I saw something today about Eton Pass, and he says how he took over Twitter, which somebody I think lied to him because I lost my 3 accounts and my voice on that they can take your voice and they could change it. And I know with this, the AI. So that's something that I personally feel as a Christian and as being a Bible, we're not supposed to gossip about people because it's easy to make something bad and it's harder to make something good. And I feel that my beliefs are that a yes or no question is very important when you're at a debate and you want to finish and you want to yes or no is, did you do it or didn't you do it? And she's on the payroll, so that's why you have to really scrutinize if she's not supposed to be, talking bad about anybody or talking good. She's supposed to just teach the process of things and how students work.
Thank you. Hold on a second. Let's have one conversation. We got 3 more comments and we're giving y'all 35 seconds each.
If you guys haven't heard of the Trump effect is what took what took hold when Trump won the last presidential contest. The Trump effect is when people started to become violent and violently imposed Trump's opinions on random individuals. Hate speech always incites violence. That is what hate speech is designed to do, and that is what Trump engages in. What the president of that college was not engaging in was hate speech, because she comes from a community, a culture that has worked very hard to hold opinions in resistance to the opinions that were being violently enforced through nonviolence. And we understand that. And they are now attacking freedom of speech, particularly freedom of speech that is used to resist hate speech, like the hate speech of Zionism that protects a country that refuses to acknowledge all of its citizens as citizens. We resist these things nonviolently, and they want to control our nonviolent speech as hate speech. They will not get away with it.
Thank you so much. That was very eloquently said.
I will simply say this. Just because you find something lawful does not mean it is expedient.
That was short and sweet. Just because you found something lawful doesn't mean it's expedient. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I just feel like it's oppression again, all over again. That's all it is. I mean, if you look at it, yeah. It just look like it's oppression again. Because if you look at it, it's a black woman, and she's smart, and she's a leader. And it looks like they're trying to take her down. Like, no, we're not going to let her progress at all. We're going to leave her where she's at. We shouldn't even let her get this far. So I guess they just trying to not let her speak, not let her get her voice heard. But like the guy said, Trump, he incited a whole war practically, on January 6th. So I just think, we got to look at each other and look at it like, we got to listen and let that lady speak what she speak, and and listen to her and hear her out. I don't know the particulars, but it just sounds like oppression. That's all.
Thank you so much. All right, thank you. Giselle's going to close us out.
Thank you, Dom. So I'm going to close us out in prayer. So I would like everybody to please stand up, bow their heads. No walking to the food while I'm praying, because if you walk away from a conversation with God, what can he do for you? Okay. So I'm going to start now. Dear God, we beseech thee that the words which we have heard this day with our outward ears may, through thy grace, be so grafted inwardly in our hearts, that they may bring forth in us the fruit of good living to honor and praise. Thank you, Lord, for your presence with us this day as we depart from this space. We ask you to bless us throughout the remainder of the day and guide us safely home. Amen. Oh, it's too late for that. It's too late. Everybody trying to leave out and stuff.